Have you ever wondered how a country rich in oil reserves, like Venezuela, can experience an economic collapse? Well, it's a paradox as fascinating as it is disconcerting. Imagine a land blessed with the world's largest proven oil reserves, a veritable black gold that promises wealth and prosperity. Venezuela lived this reality, with its economy once booming, buoyed by the seemingly endless flow of oil. However, a grim economic collapse was lurking in the shadows. This is a classic instance of the resource curse, a paradoxical situation where countries with an abundance of natural resources, specifically non-renewable resources like minerals and fuels, tend to have less economic growth and worse development outcomes than countries with fewer natural resources. So how did Venezuela go from an oil-rich nation to a state of economic collapse? The answer is complex, involving a mix of economic mismanagement, political instability, and global market forces. Let's unravel this economic conundrum that is Venezuela. Venezuela in the 20th century was a beacon of prosperity, all thanks to its vast oil reserves. It was the year 1910 when the first oil well, Zumaque first, struck black gold. This discovery sparked an oil boom that would transform the nation's economy and society, catapulting Venezuela to be one of the wealthiest countries in Latin America. The oil wealth brought about an economic boom that was nothing short of spectacular. The country's GDP per capita grew at an incredible rate. This wealth was not just confined to a small elite, it trickled down and led to an expansion of the middle class, a phenomenon that was a rarity in the region. As the petrodollars flowed in, the government invested heavily in infrastructure, education, and healthcare. Highways, hospitals, schools, and universities sprouted up across the country. The living standards of Venezuelans improved dramatically. People had access to affordable housing, quality education, and modern healthcare services. The country was also able to afford generous social welfare programs. These initiatives further improved the quality of life for many Venezuelans, reducing poverty and boosting social mobility. The Venezuelan economy was thriving, and its citizens were reaping the benefits. However, this prosperity came with a double-edged sword. The country's economy became heavily dependent on oil. It accounted for a whopping 95% of Venezuela's export earnings and about half of the government's revenue. This heavy reliance on a single commodity made the country vulnerable to global oil price fluctuations. In the midst of this economic boom, Venezuela was dubbed as the Saudi Arabia of the Americas due to its oil wealth. However, beneath this glittering facade, there were warning signs that all was not well. The economy was increasingly reliant on oil, and the government's spending was becoming unsustainable. But as we soon find out, this prosperity was not to last. The cracks that appeared during the heyday of Venezuela's economy would soon grow into gaping fissures. In the late 20th century, the cracks in Venezuela's economy began to show. The country, once a beacon of prosperity, was teetering on the brink of economic disaster. A series of economic policies coupled with political instability and global oil market dynamics stimulated the onset of the economic downfall. Venezuela, blessed with the world's largest oil reserves, was heavily reliant on oil exports. This dependence became the country's Achilles heel when oil prices started fluctuating on the global market. The prosperity of the 70s and 80s, fueled by high oil prices, gave way to a lost decade in the 90s when prices plummeted. The economy contracted, unemployment soared, and poverty rates rose. Simultaneously, the government's economic policies further exacerbated the situation. In an attempt to control inflation and stabilize the economy, strict price controls were implemented. These policies, however, backfired. They discouraged investment, created shortages of basic goods, and resulted in a thriving black market. The government also embarked on an ambitious social spending spree, funded by oil revenues. But as oil prices fell, so did the government's ability to sustain these programs. Political instability also played a critical role. A series of political crises, coupled with corruption and mismanagement, added fuel to the fire. The government's inability to address these challenges effectively led to widespread disillusionment and unrest. The impact of these factors wasn't immediate. For a while, it seemed like Venezuela could weather the storm, but as the new millennium dawned, the situation took a turn for the worse. The country plunged into a deep economic recession, and the effects were felt far and wide. The stage was set for an economic crisis of unprecedented magnitude. The 21st century brought with it a full-blown economic collapse for Venezuela. As we journey further into the new millennium, Venezuela, once an emblem of prosperity in Latin America, found itself sinking deeper into economic turmoil. The nation's wealth, once flowing like the Orinoco River, started to dry up, and with it, the living standards of the Venezuelan people plummeted. Hyperinflation, a term that many economists use to describe an economy spiraling out of control, became a harsh reality for Venezuelans. The bolivar, Venezuela's currency, lost its value at an alarming rate. Prices soared, making everyday items a luxury for many. A bag of rice, a loaf of bread, a simple haircut. These became treasures out of reach for ordinary Venezuelans. The country's money was now worth less than the paper it was printed on, a stark symbol of an economy in freefall. But the economic collapse was not just about the plummeting bolivar or skyrocketing prices. It was also about the severe shortage of goods. Supermarket shelves lay bare, hospitals ran out of basic medicines, and power outages became the norm. The oil-rich nation, ironically, faced severe fuel shortages. The scarcity of goods, coupled with the hyperinflation, created a humanitarian crisis like no other. The crisis didn't stop at the borders of Venezuela. It spilled over, leading to mass exodus. Millions of Venezuelans, in search of better lives, fled their homeland, creating one of the largest displacement crises in modern history. The ripple effects were felt far and wide, from neighboring Colombia to distant Spain. The economic collapse was not an overnight event. It was a slow, painful slide into chaos, a culmination of years of mismanagement, corruption, and an over-reliance on oil revenues. It was a stark reminder of the fragility of an economy and the catastrophic consequences of its collapse. The once prosperous Venezuela was now in ruins. With its economy shattered and its people suffering, Venezuela's fall served as a chilling cautionary tale for nations around the globe. It underscored the importance of economic diversification, good governance, and the prudent management of natural resources. The economic collapse of Venezuela serves as a stark reminder and lesson for economies worldwide. Today, the once prosperous nation grapples with a humanitarian crisis of immense proportions, with the impact of economic decisions rippling through every corner of society. Consider the story of Franklin Iriarte, a barber who, in the face of adversity, transformed a van into a mobile barbershop. His innovative spirit is a testament to the resilience of the Venezuelan people, a silver lining amid the economic turmoil. Yet, it also stands as a stark symbol of the lengths to which people must go to survive in a collapsed economy. Similarly, the country's humanitarian crisis is so severe that the United Nations World Food Programme has stepped in to address rising child malnutrition. The initiative aims to reach hundreds of thousands of children, a disheartening indication of the scale of the crisis. Yet it also underscores the importance of international cooperation in mitigating the effects of economic collapse. Then we have the incident at Canaima National Park, where a party on a sacred mountain sparked outrage. This event, while seemingly unrelated, highlights the societal impacts of economic collapse. As resources become scarce, respect for local customs and rules can diminish, leading to conflict and further societal breakdown. The lessons from Venezuela's economic collapse are manifold. Economies must strive for diversification to avoid over-reliance on a single resource. They must ensure that wealth is equitably distributed to avoid social unrest. And they must maintain strong international relations to secure assistance when needed. Moreover, the importance of sound economic management cannot be overstated. Policies must be sustainable, and short-term gains should not come at the expense of long-term stability. The Venezuelan experience shows that ignoring these principles can lead to catastrophic outcomes. While the future of Venezuela remains uncertain, the lessons learned from its economic collapse will continue to resonate globally. The story of Venezuela's economic collapse is a complex tale of missed opportunities and flawed policies. It's a narrative that takes us on a journey from the heyday of prosperity, buoyed by oil wealth, to a downfall triggered by economic mismanagement and political instability. The collapse was not an overnight event, but a slow decay, marked by hyperinflation, extreme poverty, and a severe humanitarian crisis. In the aftermath, we see a nation struggling to rise from its ashes, with individuals like the innovative barber Franklin Iriarte finding ways to adapt and survive. On the other hand, we witness the immense challenges faced by the country, like the damage inflicted on the sacred mountain in Canaima National Park due to desperate survival tactics. The lessons learned from Venezuela's economic collapse are profound. They underscore the importance of sound economic policies, the necessity of diversification beyond a single resource, and the critical role of political stability in sustaining economic growth. As we leave you to ponder on these economic realities, remember, the story of Venezuela serves as a stark lesson to nations worldwide. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to our channel for more insightful content like this. Stay tuned.